For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Joanne Law, Director of Mediation Institute, and we've been working with Dan in establishing a special program for Mediation Institute members, particularly around assisting you build your professional practices. So I'll introduce Dan in a moment and hand over. Before I proceed, though, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and pay my respects to elders past, present, and to emerging leaders. I'm coming to you from the lands of the Gunai Kurnai people in Gippsland in Victoria. Please use the chat if you'd like to introduce yourself and share where you're coming. Dan, I'm going to spotlight you and hand over to you for the presentation. I imagine you're going to provide a little bit more introduction to yourself in your presentation, so I might just step aside and give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Joanne. And thanks also, Ro, for helping out with all the prep work. And hello, everybody. Good evening. I think it's good evening for most of you and good morning for me. It's still a decent hour here in England. It's 9 a.m. So usually when I speak to Australia, it will be a whole lot earlier my time. So thanks for staying up or allocating time right now for this presentation. Yeah. Fantastic. So yes, the topic of today's conversation is, first of all, practice development. And secondly, also announcing our collaboration between Performance Laws, my company, and the Mediation Institute with the launch of the Cultivation Academy program. So I'm very excited to tell you more about that at the end of the presentation today. But I also want to make sure that we cover new and interesting content. So what I'd like to do today is build on the presentation that I did earlier this year regarding the different stages of practice building and business development. For those of you who weren't present or didn't watch the recording, not to worry, I'll do a little recap, but we'll expand on that today. I also want to say that if you have any questions, then put them in the chat. We'll get to them at the end. And you can always also ask them live. My presentation will take, let's say, somewhere around 35 to 45 minutes, and then we'll have some time for questions afterwards. So that is it. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Dan Mortimer, and I run a company called Performance Laws. It's a specialized company, specialized in business development. I've got over 20 years of experience in providing advanced services to sophisticated clients and audiences, which is pretty much what all of you are doing or will be doing. We've worked with hundreds of ADR professionals all over the world over the past 8+ years. And I'd like to say that we're both practice and location agnostic. So it doesn't really matter where you're based, if you're in a metropolitan area or if you're in a rural area, if you are focused on employment or family or personal injury. Our process and our system really caters to all audiences. And speaking of our system, we have a proven and effective set of processes and activities that helps obtain tangible results. And for most people, tangible results really means getting more clients and more visibility. So what we will do here today is, as I said, first of all, we'll do a recap of the previous presentation that I did that revolved around what business development activities you need to do at each and every stage of your practice maturity. So whether you're just starting out today or you have a more established practice. And the next thing we'll do is focus on what I believe to be really the most important thing for practice development, which is cultivating relationships. And lastly, we'll look at how you can enhance your visibility, because visibility does matter, primarily as a way of staying top of mind. And then obviously, finally, I should have included that here, we'll talk about the special collaboration offer that we're rolling out starting today. If you were on the presentation earlier this year, you might recall this illustration. So this is my practice maturity illustration. It shows you 3 different types of practices: a new practice, a practice that's established, where you're getting cases, and a practice that is leading, where you are very busy, very successful. The red arrow indicates the level of effort that you need to put into business development, and the green arrow illustrates revenue. So when you're just starting out with a new practice to the far left here on the slide, you will have to get cases and clients. You will generally not have that at this stage, which means that you need to put in a lot of effort into business and practice development. At this stage, your revenue would also be limited. When you have an established practice, it means that you now have some existing clients and referral parties, which generally means that you're able to get some repeat cases. That's one of the beauties with this space, that if you work hard and you succeed with developing relationships, then generally you're able to get recurring business from those relationships, which isn't always the case for other types of businesses and service providers. So you can get the repeat business, but you still need new clients and referral parties. So you still need to put in effort into business development, but now your effort is slightly different. You're able to focus on your existing relationships and try to leverage those. And you're also focused on cultivating new relationships. And at this stage, your revenue is growing. And the final stage is when you have a leading practice. And that's when you get cases mostly from existing clients and referral parties. That tends to mean that you can reduce your efforts when it comes to business development pretty significantly. But it doesn't mean that it goes down to zero, I should say. That might be what people think, but you still need to do something because things do change even at this stage. You can find yourself in a situation which isn't uncommon where a lot of your clients and referral parties end up retiring. And if you haven't had a thought through process for juniorizing your relationships, then you might find yourself in a bit of a pickle at that stage. So business development is key at every stage. It just it will look different depending on where you are on this curve. So that's the backdrop to what we talked about.
Yes. Just wondering, would you like me to launch a little poll and people can say where they feel like they are? You're anonymous. Oh, yes.
Yeah, let's do that. That'll be fun, actually. Let's do that. We can circle back to it. Just let me know, Joanne, when we have a decent amount of responses. And in the meantime, I will continue. Before we get into what you should be doing and how you should be doing it and when you should be doing those activities, let's look at how cases are obtained. We'll start from the basics. So you can get cases or clients from two different sources. You can get direct client engagement, which is client contacts you directly for your services. But you could also get referrals, and that could be other professionals such as attorneys that recommend you to their clients. And if we zoom in on this referral part, that could also be broken down into a few different groups. So you have the direct referrals that typically will come directly from attorneys or other individuals, companies, and organizations. You can also have what I call panel referrals from organizations that maintain rosters of mediators. And you can have company group-based referrals from companies that employ or contract mediators. And any or all of these can be available to you depending on the nature of your practice. So how does cases and work really get awarded? It gets awarded primarily in three different ways. Number one, relationships. And that ultimately comes down to that people know who you are, or they know someone who knows of you or knows you. It could also be a question of your reputation. So they know of you because they've heard about you from someone. And it could also be a question of your visibility because they've seen you or they've seen information about you somewhere. And again, you should really be targeting all of these different areas, all three areas.
Yeah. Dan, I've got
Yes.
the results. I'll just share them.
Here we go.
Able to see. So 85% are new practitioners. So they're all saying, how do I get my relationships and reputation and visibility? And we've got 15% of people that are in that middle bracket. We haven't got any leading practitioners.
They're too busy to hear me speak.
Just interesting. Thank you.
Thank you for filling in that poll. That's super helpful. That gives me also a better idea of how to frame today's presentation. What challenges do you then face depending on where you are here with your practice. As I mentioned, if you have a new practice, you might not know of anyone that can provide you with work. You very likely will have no existing clients and limited visibility. If you have an established practice, you typically will not have enough work or clients. And then with a leading practice, let's go light touch on this one, you generally don't have enough time to hear me speak or enough time to do business development or anything else, or you're busy with the wrong type of things. So what most practice areas need, and particularly those that are launching a new practice and those that have an established practice, is to cultivate relationships and enhance visibility. And I mentioned this earlier on in the presentation or in the beginning of the presentation, that the most important thing really tends to be the relationship cultivation, because decisions are based on the back of relationships. The visibility is generally helpful from a supporting effort. So once you have a network, then that network can see and hear from you much more easily if you have visibility-oriented efforts. And I'll get into describing exactly what I mean by this. We'll walk you through step by step what you can and should be doing. The reason why most people focus on visibility, I find, comes down to the fact that we generally don't know how to build and cultivate relationships. And we might also feel a little bit worried about doing it, because it's much easier to write LinkedIn posts than actually trying to contact people that very scarily also might say no to you and not want your business. They might prefer other service providers. And this is all perfectly natural and all very common. But that also means that you can very easily distinguish yourself compared to your competition. I think we all know that competition is growing in this space. So if we can set ourselves apart and build and cultivate real lasting relationships, then that's going to be incredibly useful for us as we move forward and develop our practice. So the reason why this is challenging with practice development really comes down to what I talked about relationships, because relationships aren't built overnight. We all know that. And that creates a challenge for us when we're trying to develop the practice. And one thing that a term I tend to use is the delayed feedback loop. And what that ultimately means is that because relationships aren't built overnight, you tend not to get immediate results on your business development efforts. If you've tried emailing someone or contacting them on LinkedIn, very often people don't respond, or you get some template boilerplate type of response, but nothing really happens on the back of it. And it's because of many reasons, but it's very unlikely that we get an immediate home run the first time we meet or interact with someone. And that means that it becomes hard to gauge the impact of our activities, because if we don't know if we're doing the right thing in an interaction, then we don't really know how to allocate our efforts and our resources. So it becomes challenging when it comes to evaluating what we should be focused on. And one example of this is really is that of a restaurant. So if you picture a restaurant owner, he's just opened a new restaurant and he wants to fill this restaurant with clients in the local town where he lives. So restaurant is completely empty now, looks super nice, and I bet the food is good too. So his thought is, let me put out an ad in the local paper, and I'll add a voucher code. And anybody who walks in with that voucher code on Saturday between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m., they'll get 20% discount on their bill. Just this once, it's a launch offer. And come Saturday, restaurant is packed with people and everybody's using the voucher code. So it's very easy for this restaurant owner to say, okay, if I do these types of activities, I'm actually filling my restaurant. For us, that's not the case, because we can't take out an ad in the local paper and give people a voucher code and hope that they contact us for mediation services. And this takes us back to what I said. It becomes really difficult to prioritize and allocate your time, money, and energy, because as you're walking through this labyrinth of business and practice development, you don't really know if you're heading in the right direction and you're going to end up on the other end, or if you're actually heading in the completely wrong direction and you're just going to go around in circles and never reach the end of this labyrinth. So that's ultimately what we're here to do, to discuss today. What does this roadmap look like? What do you need to do? And one of the key elements with relationship cultivation is really the top of mind, the cultivation part. And the reason why it's so important is because decisions aren't likely to be made immediately. There's often a process, even if the need is there for your services, there's still often a process. And decisions are typically based on some kind of due diligence. And they're also based on some kind of relationship. And they're also linked to the right timing. So even if you have established a relationship, there's an interest and there's a need, the time might not be right. So then what happens? If the need is in 6 months' time, do you expect them to remember you just because you had one interaction? This is one of the reasons why these like one-off type of initiatives don't work. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen and heard clients talk about this, that I got a list together of 50 attorneys and I emailed them and not one single attorney responded. I had a target audience of 100 and I emailed 5 people responded, but they weren't interested. They told me to stop emailing. And if we just put ourselves in their shoes, it's not that difficult. I get spam consistently. It's just I'm struggling with how to just filter it out and auto-delete it. And I can't think of any time where I've actually responded to someone. Maybe I've been close at 1 or 2 times, but a completely cold outreach where they put all of their effort into one attempt. Hello, here's me, here's my services, keep me in mind, contact me here, go to my website, and then you never hear from them again. It's just terribly ineffective. So we want to come up with a better plan. But important to remember is that this does not only revolve around the cold contacts, it also revolves around your existing contacts, because even your existing relationships will need a little nudge from time to time because they're busy and they're under pressure. So they might always remember that, oh, I should be contacting Dan actually about this. And they also obviously have your competitors approaching them. So there might be someone that's much more diligent that is staying in touch, and they might all of a sudden be in pole position. And there is such a thing as convenience or recency bias. So whoever connects with someone more recently might be in a better position to actually obtain that business. And if you are sitting back and just expecting people to remember you always without much effort from your end, then business might go another way. And so might the relationship. So what is your objective then? When you have existing clients and contacts, your objective should be to obtain more business from them and also obtain new business. That's an important thing which we often forget. With prospects, which is completely cold contacts, we want to obtain new business. If you have some other metric, as in you're not actually doing this to invoice and make money, some people have practices like that. They might not actually run their own practice. They might be part of organizations or companies or groups where this is offered for free, or you're not ultimately monetizing it directly yourself. There might be some other metric, but very often it's about acquiring new business. And for both of these areas, it really comes down to building relationships. Don't send stuff, as in don't try to remove yourself from a proper effort by just sending your CV or sending an email once or sending an article. But you really need to own this initiative and not leave the work to your contacts. Just see it as everything being your responsibility, and you need to enable people to do business with you. The best way, and really the only way to do this, I think, is to have a proper system in place, to have continuous effort, and to have time and patience. If we have all three, it means that we can build relationships and visibility in a much more sustainable way People don't perceive us as being too pushy, salesy, or needy. It just happens and evolves more naturally. So what's the framework then for staying top of mind? And I should maybe preface this by saying that this might seem like a whole lot, what we're about to go through and what we have gone through. And honestly, it probably is. But that's also why we're going to get to the end, the collaboration offer that will package this all up for you in a nice and neat way, because it is a lot, of course. We're dealing with human interaction here, and there's a lot of different things. And trust me, had there been one single button that you could push, then I probably would have figured it out over 10 years of doing this. So how do you then stay top of mind? You do that through direct measures and indirect measures. The direct measures are generally one-on-one oriented, as in you are engaging online or offline with one individual, whereas the indirect measures are more passively oriented. So if we start with the one-on-one direct measures, it really comes down to you staying in touch with your contacts and the network that you're developing. The best way of doing that is really to have variation. So we don't want to keep sending people the same message through the same channel all the time. And I'm sure you've seen this, like when someone emails you and they try to solicit, they start responding to their own message. So at the end, when you look at it, you might have 3 months of follow-ups where they effectively are saying, hey, I'm just following up. Hey, I'm just nudging. Hey, have you seen this? Hey, it's just terribly ineffective. Even if I wanted to respond, after 3 months, I'll feel bad because there's 8 emails there where they tried to follow up with me. So send an email, send a LinkedIn message, give them a call if there's someone that you already have some kind of interaction with. Do it both online and in the real world. And consistency is key here. Like I mentioned, like the one-off thing will generally not be effective. So that brings us to the passively oriented efforts. And those can come in different forms. It could be social media that you're posting on LinkedIn. You're doing general posts, you're doing articles, maybe you're blogging, maybe there's other things that you're doing. Keep in mind that you could do text, audio, and video here. It's not only about texts, but text is generally the easiest way to start. But having said that, some people find it easier to just record short videos and they can post them on LinkedIn or on their website. You could also host or be part of online events. The same for in the real world events. And it could also be a question of delivering content directly to your network by broader email communication. Combining this one-on-one measures with more passive measures allows you to stay in touch with your audience and build and cultivate relationships over time. Now, when it comes to the indirect measures, visibility, which is the posting and the other activities that I just told you on the previous slide, can be a little bit daunting to come up with a plan around what do I do and how do I do it. Our approach to this is really the path of least resistance. And that comes on the back of the fact that when you're doing the relationship cultivation, the contact cultivation, that tends to take time and effort. And since that is the most impactful, that's also where you should be spending your attention and your energy. So with visibility, we just want to do the minimum thing to start off with. Now, if you love enhancing your visibility, then you should do that, but just be sure that it actually translates into real business. The some of our clients, it does, and they like it. By all means, then it's something that you can focus on together with the contact cultivation. So an example of how you can do this is just to follow a very simple structure. Try to create some kind of content once per week and roll through 5 different types of cycle, or one cycle with 5 different types of topics. So week 1, maybe you're posting something around lessons learned. Week 2, it's something that revolves around industry news. Week 3, it's takeaways from recent work. What did you learn in a recent work engagement? Week 4, advice to your clients, your parties. whoever it is that you're interacting with, and maybe week 5, something personal. Keep in mind that you're not communicating to other mediators. Many people do that. You're communicating to your clients and your referral parties. Those are the people that we care about here. Unless you have some other objective, which is to become a thought leader and so on and so forth. But I don't think that's what we're focusing on here today. So this is an easy approach to just getting things done. And let's explore this a little bit further. There are 3 reasons for why you are active like this. Obviously for the outcome, because you want more business. It could also be for the audience itself, which is they might find it interesting. It might help you cultivate relationships. There might be other values there. But another area, the final area, which people often forget, is that you're also posting for yourself. Because if you are creating content like this, first of all, you can, well, I'll get to that on the second point, but there's other purposes for it, but you also become a better communicator. So you will understand your target audience better by seeing what they like and engage with. The reason I'm mentioning this is don't be downbeat by lack of likes and comment and reshares of your content. It's not really about this at this stage. It's about you putting information out there so that enhances your skills. It keeps you top of mind with whoever it is that might see your content, and so on and so forth. And you can obviously repurpose that content. Shorter content can become long content and vice versa. So your LinkedIn posts can become blog posts, and your blog posts can build up to a book, or if you're teaching or training at the university or somewhere else, that could also help you build out that content. So just repackage and reuse it. Don't be so concerned about whether people have seen it before, or again, like the lack of interaction. Just keep it up. Frankly, most people, even if they see something that they like, they won't actually engage with it. And you can deliver this content via multiple channels and in different ways. Remember that text, video, audio, and LinkedIn. Maybe you do Instagram, maybe your own website. Maybe you do TikTok, who knows? We have clients that play around with some or all of these. For you to successfully be able to establish some kind of relationship, it generally will take 7 to 13 plus touch points. And a touch point could be anything. It could be an email, a text message, a LinkedIn post. We're not always aware of how many touch points we have. And this sort of brings us back to that whole delayed feedback loop. That's why we need a multitude of efforts over time, so that we're able to build those relationships and that visibility. So what can you do then to get started today? First of all, create a plan. Who is it that you're targeting? Do you have existing clients or not? What does your network look like? And start staying in touch with people. Start reaching out to people, start producing content regularly, and then cultivate new relationships through these indirect and direct measures with prospects. It doesn't have to be super complicated at first. It's just a question of getting started with this. Maybe your goal is to do 1 LinkedIn post per week and you send out 20 LinkedIn connections per week. Maybe that's step 1 for you. And you know that expression, like a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. That's precisely it. Start with the first step, and then you will see where this will take you. Again, like I realized that this is a lot of information and a lot of things that you can and probably should be doing. And I'll tell you more about how I think this should be best approached. Before we get to that, I just wanted to show you some examples. Like, does this work? It absolutely does work. It works faster if you're already established and if you already have existing clients and relationships, because you're able to leverage off of those. So these examples are all from clients that had an established practice, but we also have examples of clients that launched new practices. One client that got a number of new cases after sending out their first newsletter. One client that got a case from LinkedIn outreach. Another client here got several new cases from commencing their training program. Yet another, several new cases. One case after 7 years from a client that has been following their newsletter. So it's not a new practice, but I just thought that was quite interesting. So you never know exactly what will happen and how. All of these examples are from our online training program, where either I share or clients share their success stories and challenges and much more. So what is the best way to learn then? We've tried it all over the past 8+ years. We've done group coaching, only e-learning, one-on-one coaching, free content, and probably a lot more. But after trying all of these things out, my conviction is that the best way of learning is really to combine different efforts. If you have self-learning through online training, if you have group-based interaction, and if you have access to a specialist, then that is incredibly helpful because you can learn directly by yourself, you can learn together with others, and you can learn through one-on-one type of interaction. Because this is so complex and because it's relationship driven, it's very difficult to do this by yourself. It's much easier if you're doing it with others because the processes tend to be longer. You're not going to build an established practice in 3 months. It will take you longer. And for you to really withstand the challenges and the ups and downs, being part of a community is the best way of doing it. So I've called it, and I think when Joanne and I talked on our podcast, I called it like a university, but I think a better word that I like better is an academy. And that brings us to our collaboration offer here today. So we have a special offer for the Mediation Institute members to join what's called the Cultivation Academy program. And the Academy program consists of a number of different things. It's 15 hours of e-learning. This is perfect. The e-learning is perfect if you are just starting out, if you have a new practice, and most of you do. It will also help those with an established practice tweak and improve parts of their practice. You have a set of onboarding videos that will help you get quickly up to speed because sometimes 15 hours could be quite overwhelming. So just getting those first 8-minute videos, there's a few of them, will help contextualize and frame the work that needs to be done and how you can benefit from this program. You also get tutorials via emails, and you get free access to the Cultivation System community. And this is a paid-for community. It includes members that have established practices and leading practices. This will be particularly useful. It'll be useful for all of you, but I think if you have an established practice, then there's a lot of things here that clients all effectively would be paying thousands of dollars for. And then finally, you also have support from me and my team in the community. You can ask questions, we'll respond to you. If you want more out of it, there's a marketplace where you could buy additional services. You can also upgrade your program, but this offer is strong in of itself. So there's no obligation or need for upgrading or buying additional services if you don't want to. But if you want results faster, then that's generally the best way of doing it. The program itself has been sold for over 1,000 Australian dollars, but it is offered for $0 for 6 months from today for all Mediation Institute members. Very excited to be able to do this together with Joanne. I think you're going to find it really helpful. It'll give you an opportunity to grow, but also interact with people that are trying to accomplish the same things as you. There's only one thing I ask in return. When you join, you will have to introduce yourself to have the content enabled. And the reason why I put this big commitment on you is just that it really helps. It helps you with getting engaged and opening up your mind to this new process and embracing things. And it also helps others because they see that there's activity, and that helps create a community feeling. It's very easy to join. All you have to do, you can take a screenshot or you can take a photo of this, is to go to performancelaws.com. That's an S at the end, performancelaws.com/MIA offer 2025. There's a link to the cultivation system training program there. And to be able to join, you will have to enter the Mediation Institute joining code. And I think Joanne and Ro can direct you to where you can access that. That's everything that I had for you today. I guess about 35 minutes, so that wasn't too bad.
We just had a question. Is the 6 months from when people join or 6 months from today?
6 months from today.
Yeah. So get on to it, people.
Yes, don't hold back. There's no perfect time to do these things. The perfect time is now because it will still take you time. It takes time from today than tomorrow. And if you have any questions, then please let me know. Yeah, excellent. Any questions? Then please fire away. But you can also ask the questions in the Cultivation Academy program. Here we go. Mary has a question.
Good question.
Yeah, this is a good one. Can you talk a bit more about relationship cultivation when you don't have an existing client base that you can tap into because they belong to your previous employer, for example? Yeah, really good question. The good news is that the relationship cultivation doesn't differ depending on the background or the scenario. Like new contact cultivation will pretty much always be the same. It will be the same for different practices, for many scenarios, and also for different locations. This is ultimately what the program is about. So I'm just trying to think of how to break it down into something concise so you don't get a long monologue about it. But ultimately, it's about having a system and having patience. You need to establish that initial contact. The best way of doing that, if you're starting from scratch, is just define what services is it that I will be providing to whom? And are these people aware of how this all works? Or is there an education element? Hopefully they're aware. So they understand what it is that you're providing. They understand that people pay for those services. And you're able to, if you approach them, then you can, it's clear to both parties exactly what's in an ideal scenario supposed to happen. So once you made that initial connection, it really is a question of staying in touch with someone. The starting point for you should really be like LinkedIn. It's the easiest way. Go to LinkedIn, search for your target audience, send them a connection request, make sure that there's a message in that connection request. If and when connected, send them a follow-up message. And then from that point, you can begin the cultivation efforts. I realize that it might be a little bit lot there, Mary, too. It's such a broad question. It's a very good question. It's a very broad question. But if you join the program, it'll become clear to you exactly what you need to do to be able to do this effectively. Hopefully that gives you something. I'm going to look here. I can see that there's Kelly joined. Thanks very much for the kind feedback, Kelly. I remember you. And then Beth has a question. How can you have a difference with your LinkedIn posts? We all see the usual ones. We're often just yeah, I don't disagree with you there. I think I've struggled myself a little bit with doing this as well as I know that I could, because I'm relatively private. And then one of the things that works particularly well on social media is if you're not. So I'm trying to break down some of my own barriers and just do more of that. The starting point really, Beth, is that it doesn't matter so much what we think people want or what people actually ultimately want. Because for us to be able to communicate with content that really resonates and really is interesting and something that people will talk about, it requires a lot of effort. And that is not the path of least resistance that we talked about. So our objective is really to put content out there. So when you are already connected with someone, we're going back to Mary's question. Mary's now sent out 20 LinkedIn connection requests, 10 of those have been accepted, and she posts her first post. Then many of these 10 new connections will see her post, and it won't necessarily be a question of them saying, oh, I can't wait for the next post. But it's a little reminder that, oh, yeah, that's right. That's Mary. That's Mary that I connected with. And then maybe 2 weeks after that, there's a new post that they will see. So it's not so much about the content that you post, more about the fact that you're actually supposed to post it. Same thing applies to newsletter. People will often say, why would I do a newsletter? No one's going to read it. They might not read through it every single time, but they will register the fact that you're sending it out, that they're getting an email from you. So those are just some thoughts on social media and LinkedIn. Okay, so I'm going to see.
While you're reading that, just one thing. I think the important thing is we need to know who you're writing to. So what Dan was saying, don't just write to impress other mediators.
Yeah.
Think of a specific client, a specific problem, and you write stuff that's relevant to them as well.
Exactly. Great. We've got a lot of questions. I'm going to take Reese first, and then I'm going to circle back to Mary and Kelly. One of the challenges that I run into is that people in my personal network tap me for support with sticky situations. But because of the personal connection, I lack the impartiality to really help. I guess this means that I need to be known to more strangers, a professional network rather than a personal network. Yeah, I would absolutely agree with this. And it's funny. A few weeks back, I created some content in the program around how do you ask your friends and connections for help? And it felt weird when I wrote that title. They're your friends. So why do you need to hear from Dan about how you ask them for help? But we're often so ingrained into how that relationships and dynamic work. Maybe they come to us for help with things, whereas now we're actually the ones that need some help. So really comes down to clearly articulating to them what you're trying to do, what you're trying to achieve, and if they possibly might help and in what way they might help. If you're able to do that, then you're going to find out if they are able to help, if they can help, if they want to help or not. If not, that's absolutely fine. But we can try the angle of our existing relationships. But again, you're absolutely right. It will revolve around expanding that relationships. And maybe you're going to have to do that yourself. Maybe your existing relationships can help you with introducing you to new connections. That would be incredibly impactful because those warm introductions are much better than when we're approaching people cold. So hopefully that's helpful. So let's go back to Mary. Speaking of social media, how much Instagram, TikTok are professionals in this space actually using and using successfully? I don't see a lot of good content from the quasi-legal field, at least in Australia. Yeah, that's a good question. I think that globally, lawyers are probably using it more than dispute resolution professionals. And for the sort of obvious reasons that if you have a personal injury type of practice, you're probably able to capture potential clients on TikTok or Instagram. Whereas if your target audience is attorneys or HR professionals, for instance, then it might be a little bit more tricky. But having said that, we have clients that are doing this successfully. We have a lady in our mastermind program that 100% is able to generate business on the back of her social media activities on TikTok and on LinkedIn, on Instagram and TikTok. What I've suggested to some other members is that if they find this interesting, because she did a masterclass for our mastermind program a while back, and a lot of people were quite interested with, okay, how do I do this? That one of the key reasons for why it should be of interest is that if you're trying to juniorize your client and referral base, it's a good place to start. So the way you can approach that is, for instance, you focus your main effort on LinkedIn, but let's say once in a while, you record a video, put some content out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You could do the same video and just see what happens. But generally, it has to be more personalized. So on LinkedIn, you can get away with, I went to a conference and it was great, and then a selfie. Whereas if you're doing it on TikTok, it probably will have to be a video of you at the conference, of you like saying hi to some buddies there, or you like filming yourself. I had one client that he had his daughter film him at the marina where they were out sailing during the weekend, and he was basically speaking to his attorney contacts and just like touching base with them, and he posted it on Instagram. Going on a little bit here, but starting point should always be LinkedIn. And then if you feel like you have the bandwidth and you're interested in it, then move on. It does matter what age your target audience is. Okay, let me also go to Kelly. So I'm paying for a LinkedIn campaign currently, just brand awareness and awaiting the call to sell me the next stage, lead generation campaign. Can you share your thoughts about the usefulness or not paying for LinkedIn campaigns? It's great that you're playing around with this, Kelly. I think because we never know. Like I said, there's not a one single switch that you can flick and then it's all working. We need to try different things. Having said that, you asked, so I'll be honest. I think we should always be careful with spending money on business development when you're in the dispute resolution space, except for my program, of course. But you're getting it for free because the main driver is going to be your relationship cultivation. And once you've learned that from me, for instance, you don't really need to spend money on it. It's a question of you actually doing it. So this, like a LinkedIn campaign, can absolutely help you with elevating your visibility. But I would say that if you want to continue with that, I would probably combine that with a significant outreach campaign. So you connecting with a lot of people, because if you have both, then these people will see more from you. And I will probably also start posting more on LinkedIn for a period of time, but particularly during the time when you run that campaign. Okay, so I think that is probably it by way of questions. Anything else on your mind? Any other questions? Just fire away now.
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts about the great 500 LinkedIn connections target line? People are under. Should they be really putting those connections so they're over 500 people? I think
that's a good question. It's all a question of weighing, like, it's always a question of where you spend your effort. Like, my key objective here is to communicate to you what I've seen work. And I think that's been hopefully achieved. Like, it is the relationships. Everything else is secondary. There are some exceptions, but it's for very specific types of practices. The fact that if you have 100 LinkedIn connections, 500 or 1,000 ultimately is not going to matter all that much. But naturally, if you have 15,000 and someone looks at your profile, that means something. But there used to be this thing, there's a word for it, I can't quite recall now, whereby like if you had 30,000 LinkedIn connections or something, you were a proper like lion or tiger, and that would have an impact on your business. I'm not certain that it will. It would be much better to have a very strong relationships with 5 clients or referral parties. That would be much more impactful for you.
Sounds good. And Mary saying, do I have to? I don't want to be.
You only have to be in the Cultivation Academy program, Mary. No, on a serious note, your question, social media is, I think LinkedIn might be the exception, but a lot of social media are maybe similar to news, quite stressful. You're fed with a lot of stuff that can worry you or stress you out. I do think that it's incredibly helpful if you're able to use LinkedIn for your practice development. Is it doable without? Yes, there's no magic recipe. There's no formula for exactly how to do this. But if you're not on social media, then you really need to find a way of building those relationships in the real world. That there's no way around that. If you can find a way to meet people and engage with people in person, then there's no reason why it shouldn't work, but it might take you longer because you're going to be able to capture less potential if you do it face-to-face, one-on-one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, just one question here from Riz. Again, you don't need to go back into social media if you don't want to. Try one-on-one. You might find that more scary. Most of us do, but we're all different. So try that out. Thanks so much.
Love the hashtag dinosaurs versus swamp creatures. Thank you. Look, thank you so much, Dan. As always, a wealth of knowledge and also a little kick in the butt for people. It's no easy way. We've got to let people know what it is that we do and make connections if we want to be successful in business. And yeah, please join the academy, watch the videos, apply the wisdom. And yeah, get out there and save lives and prevent conflict and do all the wonderful things that we want to do as dispute resolution professionals. Dan, thank you. Any last words that people?
I have a last word. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's great to see you all. I feel like I'm starting to get to know some of you a little bit, and I look forward to working with you and seeing you in the program.
Thank you so much. Okay. Good night, everyone. Good day. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Bye.